Welcome back to the Masterclass. Today, we are diving deep into what is arguably one of the most notoriously tricky areas of the Cambridge AS and A-Level Mathematics 9709 syllabus. We're talking about Section 5.3, Conditional Probability. Now, to really decode this and figure out how to maximize our marks, I want you to imagine two very common types of students we see in the exam hall. First, we have Alex. Alex is the kind of student who relies heavily on raw factual dumping. You know the type, writing down every single formula they've ever memorized the second they open the paper. Then, on the other side of the spectrum, we have Sam. Sam is a fast writer, incredibly sharp, and builds highly persuasive arguments, but consistently misses the explicit restrictions set by the command words. Throughout this explainer, we're going to thoroughly analyze both of their common mistakes. We'll use their experiences to engineer a bulletproof top-tier response strategy so you can walk into your exam with total confidence.
There's a brilliant quote from a Cambridge senior examiner that perfectly captures the reality of this paper. They noted that, quote, most students lose easy marks on 5.3, but after this, you won't be one of them. So why is this happening? Why are so many incredibly smart students hemorrhaging marks on conditional probability? Well, the truth is, applying abstract mathematical concepts to completely unfamiliar contexts is incredibly difficult if you don't have a rigid, systematic strategy in place. It's not just about knowing the math, it's about knowing the game. In this session, we are going to decode the exact insider playbook straight from the chief examiner reports. We're going to map out exactly how to stop losing those foundational marks when you're faced with an unexpected, multi-part probability scenario. Here is the rigorous structural blueprint for our session today. First, core concepts and deconstruction. Second, the strategy debate. Third, our structural system upgrade. Fourth, an interactive practice workshop. And finally, the ultimate strategy recap. Let's jump right into Section 1, Core Concepts and Deconstruction, Decoding the Cambridge Rubric. To truly crack a high-tariff, multi-part Cambridge pass paper question, you have to understand how you are being evaluated. It all comes down to the assessment objectives, or AOs. Notice how the expectations naturally scale up here. AO1 is your foundational layer. This is where you demonstrate precise definitions, like knowing the exact formula for intersecting events or mutually exclusive outcomes. But here's the catch. AO1 alone will absolutely not get you into the top marking bands. You have to step up to AO2. AO2 is all about analytical linking and establishing causal relationships. This means proving mathematically why two events are dependent. And then we reach the pinnacle, AO3. This is critical evaluation in unfamiliar contexts. The examiners explicitly emphasize that top-performing candidates exhibit connected conceptual understanding. They want to see you seamlessly linking probability distributions with conditional logic. Referencing those cross-topic connections is exactly what yields those significantly higher marks. Now, this scaling of assessment objectives builds directly into the command words. And I cannot stress this enough, this is the number one place where marks are needlessly lost. Let's break down this dialogue. If a question specifically asks you to analyze, the examiners expect you to break the problem down into logical sequential steps. If you just provide a messy block of numbers, it triggers an immediate marking penalty on the examiner's grid for a missing systematic workflow. You lose your method marks instantly. On the flip side, if the command word is evaluate, your job is to justify your mathematical recommendations. A massive common penalty here is failing to check for reasonableness. Think about it. If your conditional probability calculation spits out an answer of 1.2 and you just leave it there without evaluating the simple fact that a probability literally cannot exceed 1, you have completely failed to meet that command word's expectation. Moving into Act 2, Section 2, the strategy debate. Engineering the top-tier response. Picture this. We're in a shared study suite, and our two avatars, Alex and Sam, are trying to draft a model response to a really heavy conditional probability problem. They represent the two most common traps students fall into, and listening to their debate is the perfect way to engineer a top-tier response. Alex immediately starts overloading the page with textbook data inputs. Alex says, look, we have to write out every single raw definition, we need to establish the entire sample space, and we have to state all the formulas right at the top so the examiner knows we understand the basics. Alex is laser-focused on that AO1 data dump. It's a safe foundation, sure, but it burns through precious exam time like wildfire, without actually answering the deeper question. Sam, on the other hand, is completely frustrated by this. Sam says, no way, we literally don't have time for that. We need to skip the basic definitions and jump straight to building an analytical thesis to show that these outcomes are dependent. That's where the real marks are. So Sam writes out a fast, flexible analytical argument. But here's the problem. Sam completely misses the explicit context restrictions. By skipping the specifics, like defining the exact probability of drawing a defective chip from one specific production line, Sam's argument is floating in the air. They argue back and forth, rewriting their topic sentences live. Alex's text block is too dense and descriptive. Sam's text block is analytical but entirely unanchored to the reality of the question. They're both half right, but neither of them is hitting the requirements of the mark scheme to secure that top band.
So how do we intervene in this debate? We need a highly standardized sequence to bridge the gap between Alex's data and Sam's analysis. Every single time you face a conditional probability question, you must follow these 5 steps. Step 1, deconstruct the question and identify the specific command word. Step 2, extract only the relevant data. Step 3, select your analytical framework. Are you using a tree diagram, a Venn diagram, or a two-way table? Step 4, execute the math with crystal clear notation. And Step 5, present your final answer with the correct terminology. Skipping any one of these steps creates a massive structural vulnerability in your response. This brings us perfectly to Act 3. Section 3, Structural System Upgrade. Anchor your arguments. Okay, strategy check. We are pausing the simulation right here because Alex and Sam have hit a major structural roadblock mid-paragraph, and their evidence is failing to link back to their main thesis. Before we unlock this top band paragraph structure to help you absolutely crush your upcoming sessions, make sure your revision feed is perfectly optimized. Take 1 second right now to subscribe to Ace the Exams, that's at Ace the Exams, and enable all notifications so you never miss our weekly Cambridge exam breakdowns. It doesn't matter if you are sitting for IGCSE, O-levels, AS, or A-levels, this channel is your dedicated system upgrade. Hit that bell icon right now. All right, let's solve this structural roadblock. To get Alex and Sam from merely descriptive writing to high-level analytical and evaluative responses, we are deploying a universal structural matrix known as the PEEL framework. That stands for Point, Evidence, Evaluation, and Link. Now, you might be thinking, wait, isn't PEEL just for English or humanities essays? Absolutely not. It is a profoundly powerful tool for anchoring mathematical arguments. Let's break it down. Point. You start by stating your foundational mathematical claim. Evidence. You provide the calculated conditional probability, clearly showing you're working. Evaluation. This is where you identify the limitations of the data or state any assumptions you've made. And finally, link. You connect your finding directly back to the unfamiliar context requested by the command word. This matrix is what moves your answer from a simple calculation to a top-tier evaluative response. Let's watch our scholars rewrite their text block out loud, line by line, applying this framework. They start with a flawed response, just a bunch of generic terminology without any specific context. But by applying PEEL, they engineer a flawless paragraph. For their point, they explicitly write, the probability outcomes for the 2 production lines are not independent. Boom, clear claim. For evidence, they add, given that the chip is from line B, the conditional probability of a defect is calculated as 0.05, which differs significantly from the overall defect probability of 0.08. For evaluation, they write, this calculation assumes a constant output rate across both production lines, which may be a limitation in a real-world manufacturing context. And for the link, they close it out. Therefore, the quality control limits must be adjusted specifically for line B, fulfilling the requirement to evaluate the system's efficiency. By using proper headings, correct terminology, and clear annotations, they've guaranteed every single context mark. It is a massive upgrade. Moving into Act 4, Section 4, Interactive Practice Workshop. Pause and practice. I want to address you directly for this immersive workshop segment. Imagine a 60-second countdown timer running on your screen right now. This is Challenge 1, the visual data scan. In the exam, you will be confronted with complex data sets, maybe a medical testing scenario involving false positives and false negatives. Under extreme pressure, your goal is to rapidly scan that unfamiliar case study and extract the highest yielding core trend before the clock runs out. Can you break it into logical steps instantly? What is the base rate of the disease? What is the given condition of the test? If you can look at a wall of text and immediately realize, I need to build a tree diagram to map out the disease versus no disease branches before I even attempt to calculate the conditional test results, then you're thinking exactly like a chief examiner. That instinct is what saves you time. Now for Challenge 2, spot the examiner trap. Let's pull out our digital highlighter and look at a flawed, medium-tier student paragraph. Based directly on principal examiner reports, there are 3 massive traps you need to spot. Mistake 1, using the wrong analytical approach for the given context. Mistake 2, forgetting to verify your format and presentation. And mistake 3? Providing answers that are completely unspecific to the context. Look at this highlighted line here. The student wrote, "The probability is 0.4. That's it. That is a textbook example of mistake number 3. Poor logic and a total lack of structural precision. They didn't define what that 0.4 represents in the real-world medical scenario. Because it lacks contextual specificity, the examiner cannot award the final analytical mark. We have arrived at Act V, Section 5, the ultimate strategy recap, securing the A or A star. As Alex and Sam review their final high-scoring response text and summarize their breakthroughs, there is one ultimate lifeline we need to talk about. It's the method mark strategy. So many candidates throw away foundational points simply because they do the math in their heads and don't write it down. Listen to me carefully. Marks are awarded for the procedural process, for clear working, and for evidence-based reasoning. Even if your final calculation is totally incorrect because you hit the wrong button on your calculator under stress, you can still be saved. If you explicitly write down the correct conditional probability formula and you show the examiner exactly how you substituted the values into that formula, step by step, you will capture method marks. Your systemic working is the ultimate proof of your reasoning. Show your work.
Let's distill this entire masterclass down into 3 universal Cambridge operational rules. Rule 1, the 3-step question scan. Before you write a single number, you must decode the command word, identify your variables, and map out your dependent events. Rule 2, the marks per minute formula. You have to manage your metrics under extreme pressure. Allocate your time strictly based on the tariff of the question. Don't spend 10 minutes on a 2-mark AO1 definition. Rule 3, the post-writing compliance audit. Think of this as your final review checklist. Always double-check your formatting, your terminology, and ensure your final PEL or link connects directly back to the context.
So what does this all mean for you moving forward? How will you adapt your theoretical foundation the very next time you're faced with a totally unfamiliar context? When the variables shift and the exam scenario throws you a curveball, are you going to panic and default to a raw data dump like Alex? Or are you going to step up, anchor your logic, and deploy a structured evaluative framework? You now have the playbook. The examiner's tricks are officially decoded. I want you to make sure you are subscribed to Ace the Exams, at Ace the Exams. Hit that notification bell so you're locked in for all our weekly grade masterclasses. And right now, drop a comment below sharing exactly which Cambridge subject and level, whether it's IGCSE, O-Level, AS, or A-Level, you're preparing to conquer next. It is time to put this system into practice. Go ace those exams, and I'll see you in the next session.